Manitowoc Public School Board voted against a plan that would fix certain maintenance needs in the district. The board's president saying several people at tonight's public input session did not agree with the plan that was put in front of them. He says he wants to get the public support of the project before putting the proposal in motion. The board did, however, vote to decentralize the district office, meaning district officials would have offices inside schools across the district instead of one centralized location. The plan for that would have to be made by the district superintendent and district administrators. Board officials say the move would better provide change in observations, as officials would be working in buildings where the teaching is actually taking place.
I think it's great to get our administrative group out there in touch with the community that we're there to serve.
Administrators hired an education service agency last fall to conduct a district-wide assessment of all the facilities there. The agency came up with a report in April saying the district needs $161 million over the next decade to make the necessary repairs. The school board plans to hold more public input sessions coming up in the future.